Hello, everyone. Everyone. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Welcome to the U.S. Institute of Diplomacy and Human Rights Black History Month celebration. It is the most amazing consultant and founder, Isabel Vlado. Isabel is the National Human Rights founder of U.S. Institute of Diplomacy and Human Rights. For over a decade, working in human rights, more than 15 people, human, human trafficking, prevention, DEI, and global security. Her expertise has been shared with individuals, policymakers in Congress, government officials, and leaders of international organizations. Isabel Vladoy was awarded by American presidents. Other awards include letters of appreciation U.S. representatives, local legislators, and non-governmental organizations. In addition, she is the author of two amazing bestseller books, How to Become a Human Rights Professional and Business Etiquette Secret. Oyu is committed to making the world a better place through involvement with several international organizations. Throughout her long and varied career, she has partnered with the United Nations, UNESCO, and the Organization of American States on topics related to sustainability, security, and human rights.
Thank you so much, Ramla. I really, really appreciate that introduction. It looks like you had some technical difficulties there, but hopefully everyone can hear me okay right now. Let us know where you're joining from. This is an exciting day. We are celebrating Black History Month right now. Let us know if you're able to hear us okay right now, okay? If not, we'll resume and get back once we fix the audios. Perfect. Minnesota, Quebec. Perfect. Thank you, Sandra. I appreciate for letting me know that you can hear me okay. Great. So, hello, everyone, and warm greetings from Washington, D.C. My name is Isabel Vladoyo, and as the founder of the U.S. Institute of Diplomacy and Human Rights, it is my profound honor to welcome each of you to the USIDHR Black History Month celebration with this year's theme, Unity in Diversity. First and foremost, I'd like to extend a heartfelt welcome to everyone who has joined us in celebrating Black history, both on Facebook and YouTube, particularly our distinguished guest speakers as well. Your presence today enriches our discussion and embodies the spirit of unity and diversity we strive to foster. So we are so excited to have you here. February is not just a month on the calendar. It marks Black History Month, a tradition that originated in the Jim Crow era and was officially recognized in 1976 as part of the nation's bicentennial celebrations. This month, we acknowledge and celebrate the contributions made by Black heroes throughout history. In recent years, Black History Month has evolved into a time to strengthen allegiance and support with marginalized communities, spotlighting the full spectrum of being Black and living in America. It's about celebrating culture and heritage, much like we respect and other cultural celebrations, such as Christmas or St. Patrick's Days. As a white individual, I'm sure you noticed, I felt immensely proud and honored to be accepted among so many friends, coworkers, partners, and colleagues in the African American community. But this is not just a game of black and white. Black History Month is that time for all of us, no matter the color of our skin, to acknowledge African Americans, key figures from both the past and the present. It's an opportunity to spotlight and celebrate the achievements of African Americans in this country, despite a history of racism and oppression. And I stand here to tell you that we must unite in diversity. Hence the theme of this year's Black History Month celebration. Most importantly, Black History Month is a time to educate, or at least remind our children of the history lessons they might not learn as part of the everyday school curriculum. When President Gerald Ford expanded Negro History Week into a full month in 1976, he urged the nation to seize the opportunity to honor the too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of endeavor throughout their history. Nearly half a century later, this call to action remains crucial. Black History Month helps us learn about Black culture beyond the negative stereotypes often portrayed in the media, such as poverty, drugs, and incarceration. Instead, we can focus on the positive narratives of successful Black business leaders, poets, musicians, scientists, philanthropists, artists, and, of course, human rights advocates. At the U.S. Institute of Diplomacy and Human Rights, we are committed to advancing understanding and respect for human rights and diplomacy. Our educational programs, like Edu for Every Child and Let Her Lead, are designed to empower and protect, particularly focused on the marginalized and vulnerable, ensuring that the light of education and hope reaches every corner of the society. Today's event is a testament to our commitment to see these values. Through this webinar, we celebrate the incredible contributions of the African Americans community in the field of human rights and diplomacy. You will hear today inspiring stories from our USIDHR consultants and distinguished leaders in the Black community who have been instrumental in driving meaningful impact and fostering positive change. As we delve into this narrative, we also acknowledge the ongoing challenges in our quest for racial equality and justice. The battle against discrimination and inequality continues, and as advocates for human rights, it is our duty to champion policies and practices that are inclusive and respectful of all voices. In closing, I invite you all to join us in this mission of education, empowerment, and transformation. Together, we can continue to lead a path towards a world where education is not just a tool, but a catalyst for social change and the realization of human rights for everyone. Thank you very much for your attention, and once again, welcome to this meaningful celebration of Black History Month. And while we are waiting for our first speaker to show up here on the screen, I'm going to ask my team to let me know if they are ready. I'm just going to read some of the comments that you guys left us for us here. Hello from Florida, from New Jersey, Bermuda, in Atlanta, Georgia. Perfect. I'm so glad that you can hear me okay. Homestead, Florida, Westchester, New York, Lexington, Kentucky, Hiram, Georgia. Amazing. Yes, for sure. Feel free to introduce yourself into the session. Yeah. Just gonna let my team know. Drexel. Okay, we're waiting for the first speaker to show. Okay. Ohio, Nova Scotia, Seattle. Welcome, everyone. I'm so excited. Welcome, welcome. Okay. Georgia. Darshan. Lima, Peru. Amazing. Welcome. Bienvenidos, bienvenidos. Y tenemos audiencia español también. Esta sesión, this session will be only in English, but welcome. Thank you so much, everyone. Okay. Maybe he's having some undisclosed location. Great. Maybe our first speaker has some difficulties. Meanwhile, what I'm going to do, I'm going to um, talk about Black history and the importance of Black history. As USIDHR, you know, we are more than just a nonprofit organization that is committed to the fight for human rights. We are actually committed to advancing education for all. And one of the most important things for us is to bring forward education on various topics. And when I moved to America a decade ago, I was struck to see the oppression that is going on. I was struck to see the hurdles that the African American communities has not only been through before, but it's continuing to go through nowadays. And having so many friends in the community helped me a lot. When I decided to join the fight for human rights and became a human rights advocate, I decided also to dedicate my life to advanced education for all and helping people educate about human rights. One of the things that is missing in nowadays society, which I feel it's key to handling everything that we need to handle in society, is advancing education for all. Is helping people understand and raising awareness, because sometimes we are so used to like go to work, come home, live our own life without like looking around what's happening. And when we founded the US Institute of Diplomacy and Human Rights, we basically came up with the idea of allowing people who don't have access necessarily to information to learn about human rights. And not only that, to also help others learn about human rights. That's why I'm so honored and beyond excited for the speakers that are we are going to have in today's session. While we are waiting for them to join. Just waiting. He says he's in there and he can't get in. No, he's not. He's not here. So. That's the link I gave him. Okay, good. Well, we'll see exactly. The founding vision of the U.S. Institute of, I was saying, was to democratize education and foster a deeper comprehension of these two fields that I've been working my entire life into, diplomacy and human rights. Today, our organization stands as a testament to that vision, where we expanded beyond the imagination. We have regional directors, teams, and consultants in more than 76 countries around the world. And then some of our educational programs, the Edu for Every Child and Let Her Lead, for example, has touched the lives of so many people. And while we are here as a testament, we also encourage the work that our consultants are doing on a daily basis, because what we created is just a platform for them to come here, be with you, and like share some of the work that they are doing. And yeah, so let me know if you have any specific questions while we are waiting. Obviously, Drexel Smothers, it's our first speaker of today. I'm just going to read you his bio because he has an incredible work behind. I understand from my team he's still working to connect, and my team is working on helping him connect to the session. But Drexel is not just a leader. He's a beacon of hope and change. As the founder and CEO of Let's Go Ministries, he has dedicated his life to guiding professionals in their quest to inspire positive change. His focus on aiding youth and adolescent males, particularly those grappling with emotional, social, and decision-making challenges stemming from past traumas, is not just commendable, it's transformative. But Drexel's journey is not confined to the realm of personal and professional development alone. He is also a proud U.S. Army veteran, bringing the discipline and leadership skills honed in the military in his civilian endeavors. His experience is vast and varied, having served as a medical operations manager where he supervised over 36 culturally diverse individuals. His leadership in this role was instrumental in the success of over 12 multinational medical training missions, which resulted in the training of over 700 NATO soldiers. Drexel's commitment to service and excellence, therefore, shines in every facet of his work. He's a certified trainer, certified human rights consultant, human trafficking prevention consultant, speaker, coach, roles in which he excels at guiding others towards their potential, nurturing growth, and fostering intelligence. So I'm very, very sorry that he's unable for the moment to show up on the screen, but I really wanted to share his bio, a little bit of the work he's been doing so far, okay, so that we are able to you know present these stories to you, real stories. And I'm sure many of you here who are watching us here, I encourage you in the future to apply, to be considered, to be put you on the spotlight here on the screen. Okay, let me just give me 1 second to communicate with my team to see if he. Okay. I see more people joining from Canada, Pakistan. Amazing. Dr. Frederick Lester, Houston, Texas, Boston. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. So excited to have you here. Okay. 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 Sorry, I'm just communicating with my team to make sure that Drexel is able to join. If not, we'll wait for the next speaker, which is about to join in a few minutes. Perfect. Thank you. Let me know if you have any specific questions about today's celebration on Black History Month. Obviously, we did have some technical difficulties with one of our speakers. Somebody's asking if this is being recorded to review at a later date. Yes, I think you'll be able to find the video also on the social media page of U.S. Institute of Diplomacy and Human Rights, as well as on YouTube. We appreciate you all joining us from everywhere around the world. Yeah.
The link is not.
Okay. I'm just going to ask my team if you are able to communicate with me. Let me know what's the status of our next speaker. Mm-hmm. Sorry, everyone. I just have to make sure that I communicate, and I know it's live. That's the beauty of being live on the screen here. Yes, the first speaker had some technical difficulties. We are waiting for the next one to appear. Are you able to hear me now? Hello? Let me know in the chats if you're able to hear me. I had to turn off the mic for a second to be able to deal with the team. Okay. Perfect. I'm very happy to hear that. Okay. It's for a moment that like this, we have to like keep going, right? Okay, so we are back in the studio here. We are back live streaming on the pages. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. We apologize for the little technical difficulties, and we are so sorry that Mr. Drexel was unable to join us. Maybe he's going to join us later today. I know he has several commitments, but we are so proud for his accomplishments so far. So I invited President of USIDHR, Mr. Manuel Wancha, to share a couple of words about how we celebrate Black History here at USIDHR. And then we have our next speaker prepared and joining us very, very soon. Thank you so much. Welcome, Mr. Wancha.
Um, thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Ms. Bradoyo, for inviting me. yes, I totally understand. Nothing is perfect after NTNT, was down. It's happening. Um, and thank you so much. Is for this important moment. And thank you for first. I want to say thank you to all USIDHR, USIDHR consultants which are watching us. And new USIDHR consultant members. Welcome to USIDHR. We are very proud to have you, and it's a great moment today for the country, for the international arena, to have this kind of people, with the heart to help and to protect the human rights and all the rights um, in the world, because it's very important for us, to create unity, to create support for people which they are in bad situations, and they need support. For this topic, I'm, it's a great moment to celebration of Black History Month, time dedicated not only to acknowledge the struggles and the achievements of Black Americans, but also to reflect on the continuous journey towards um, equality and justice. We observe in February in the United States serve as a um, reminder of the resilience and also perseverance, and define the African American experience. From you know, it's we work with this community, and we totally understand the pain. We honor, like how was the Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass were tirelessly for freedom and equality. We celebrate and the brilliance of innovators like George Washington Carver and Katherine Johnson, and also the contribution of the science. And nonetheless, we recognize the strength of the leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks, or whose dreams, just society continue to inspire generations. Um, Here's the things, because that inspire us, like USIDHR to be, is not just us; it's all together. The unity which we create, it's very important, and follow those leaders, and continue that. It's not a spring; it's a marathon. We continue that journey together, to any generation to come, and to understand what needs to be done, what is not. Nothing is perfect, but how we can move forward. You know. Also, I want to say uh, what is important is education. And for that we need to educate ourselves and others about the rich history and the culture of the Black community. Let's us engage in conversation, that challenge and promote understanding. I think that is very important, which is aligned with our commitments here at the USA Institute of Diplomacy and Human Rights. It's education. Let's learn from any culture, any things, to understand the good, the bad, and what needs to be done. Okay, because when you learn that, it's not just assume. It's very important to have that communication. In closing, Black History Month is not just a celebration of the African American community. It's a celebration of our shared humanity and our collective aspiration for a world market be equity, respect, and dignity for all. Let us carry forward the legacy of those who have paved the way for justice and equality, making every month a testament to the principle that Black History Month embodies. Okay, I think again, here, we daily we encourage any person who's coming to us, to share our to take our certifications, starting with human rights, human trafficking preventions, business consulting, these are them, and also diplomatic protocol. We educate them in the way, to take that message, to not only in the United States and also internationally, to create that value, and that where people doesn't have the knowledge, doesn't matter what age you are, you need to be open to learn from each other, learn from your neighbor, learn from the community where you are, and learn from the people which they don't have that awareness which you have it, and here at the USIDHR, we are very happy, for having you, Ms. Bladoy, because uh, you keep us, with the light and with moving forward with this message, to for unity and for people to understand how to communicate, and especially how to collaborate with people which they don't have those knowledge, which you share with them, and also what kind of results they can create. Thank you so much for everyone and having me. Thanks so much for having me again, and look forward, for this event. But look for the people which are coming, and I know it's a busy day. It's a Wednesday, but be patient, and I hope
Thank
everyone.
you so much, Manuel and President Wancha. What a wonderful, and you literally inspired so many here. I'm like watching the chat, and it's just mind blowing, and that's true. And I really loved your message. Danielle here says that I believe everyone, race, sex, and culture should be celebrated. We all make the human race, and that is why human rights is so important. That's such a true statement as well. And as well, others who are saying, Sandra, I personally do not see any color. I only see a human like myself as well, and the only human race of many nations as well. And so many messages of encouragement and thanking you for joining us. Thank you so much, everyone. So thank you. We appreciate for your time today,
Thank you.
President Pacha. Without further ado, it gives me an immense pleasure to introduce our next esteemed speaker, and Mrs. Andrea Dobines Wagner. I'm just gonna introduce her properly, and then I'm gonna have her join us here on the screen as well. Um, Mrs. Wagner, or Andrea, is not just a passionate and human rights activist. She's a living embodiment of the civil rights legacy. Is a proud descendant of Albert Turner and James Dobine Sr., both of whom were foot soldiers in the Black Belt of Alabama. Andrea, therefore, carries the torch of activism in her veins. She hails from Marion, Alabama, a town synonymous with birthing stalwarts of justice like Coretta Scott King. She's born on the same day as Malcolm X. Andrea's commitment to social justice and advocacy was almost predestined, if we were to look at that. Her educational journey, including a master's in gender and race studies and her current pursuit of a doctorate in communication and information sciences with a concentration in social justice advocacy, speaks volumes of her dedication. As a community educator, DEI strategist, and disability rights advocate, Andrea's work transcends conventional boundaries, making her a multifaceted leader in the fight for equality and justice. Without further ado, it's so my pleasure and honor to introduce you, Andrea, to our audience today. And thank you so much for applying and being accepted for the invitation to showcase your story. I feel it's so important to put you on the spotlight there. You're muted. You have to unmute.
Okay.
We
Sorry
can hear
about
you.
that.
No, that's not a problem.
Good afternoon and good morning. Happy Black History Month. Happy Wednesday. What a pleasure it is to be here. I do hope you all can hear me clearly. It is storming in Alabama, but we're going to say that's symbolic of what is happening in the world in the realm of injustice. So, my fight for justice began 18 years ago. At only 15, I rode the 322-mile trek from Greensboro, Alabama, to Gina, Louisiana, to protest the expulsion of who would later become the Gina Six. I was terrified to say the least, but I knew if I didn't speak up for what was right, the cyclical consequences would be worse. I did not know any of the parties involved, and I had never even heard of Gina, Louisiana. All I knew was this: something had to be done. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." I'd like to add to that by saying, we, the people who represent any marginalized group, cannot afford to just sit back and be silent. We cannot afford to just sit back and be silent. We cannot afford to do nothing when we witness or are victims of injustice. So I chose to fight daily. I choose to fight daily. I have risked my life, garnished more student loan debt than I'd like to admit, and even lost what I thought was a dream job because I refuse, absolutely refuse, to play puppet in a society where equality is a myth. I am a member of three of the most largely, arguably the most largely marginalized groups to ever grace this earth. If you didn't guess, I am Black. I am legally blind, which, no matter how mystical you think I am, that still deems me disabled. I am also woman. These three labels that I was birthed with 33 years ago today come with a set of unique challenges you'd only understand if you've been in those circumstances. Nevertheless, I am human. I wholeheartedly believe that being met with empathy and treated with dignity should be a basic human right, no matter who you are or what you identify as. It's absolutely ridiculous to think that my grandfather, the late Reverend O.C. Dobines, who was a foot soldier and a deacon of defense in Perry County, Alabama, also a Korean War veteran that earned a Purple Heart, had the same plight that I have. While we do now have the right to vote, we have the right to an education, we have the right to own property. Some would even argue we have the right to do many things that our ancestors didn't do. There is still an attack on African American people and people that are considered other across this earth, not just in America, but my focus is here and my studies allow me to speak to what is happening in America. So, for those of you who haven't been paying attention, there's an attack on true education. And by true education, I mean being able to teach the truth. In Alabama, they don't want you to teach what actually happened, and yet we celebrate the Holocaust. While I'm not saying what happened in the Holocaust isn't absolutely horrible, that didn't even happen on American soil. It is extremely dangerous to omit the suffrage of any form of people, whether that be Black people, women, African Americans, disabled, military. It's absolutely ridiculous and a gross injustice to those who have risked their lives and who have gone on. We'll take it out of Alabama. In Florida, there are universities that are being defunded. There are diversity, equity, and inclusion programs that are being defunded or ultimately wiped out. There are historically Black colleges and universities who are risking being defunded. There's even an organization called Black Man Achievement who is being defunded and at the risk of having to change their name. This is insane. And I
Yes.
know you may be thinking, well, I'm not Black. How does this apply to me? Again, I say, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice
Everywhere.
everywhere. In
That's right.
Tennessee, there were three politicians now known as the Tennessee Three, but two of them look like me. And the two that look like me were expelled. Why were they expelled, you ask? Because they refused to sit silent and they demanded justice. These men, while articulate, while properly voted in office, while met every criteria there is to run for office in their state, are still under attack. Not only just is this happening in Texas, This is happening in Louisiana. This is happening in Tennessee. This is happening in Alabama. This is happening in Mississippi, Florida, Georgia as we speak. And one of the things I want to implore you to do is speak out to your elected officials. They were placed in office. If you see problems with this, I suggest you write a letter to your prospective congresspeople. This is absolutely ridiculous. It is dangerous to not teach the truth. There are benefits of teaching the truth, and I'll just name one. It creates empathy. You would think that students would treat other students better if they knew the plight of their people and what actually happened. I'll just use Tuscaloosa, where I currently reside, for an example. At Tuscaloosa County High, there was a promposal that has somewhat gone viral, that had a very negative, demeaning, and derogatory term on it that said, if I was white, if I was black, I'd pick cotton, but since I'm white, I choose you for prom. It is to my understanding that these students have not even been met with disciplinary action. But why should they if they are not taught the truth? There are some textbooks that are currently printed that say that slavery was essentially equal to indentured servitude, or my least favorite, that slavery allowed African Americans or enslaved people to gain agricultural skills that are transferable to the workplace. That's not what happened at all. My people, these people were kidnapped, brought here, and stripped of not only their language, their culture, their name, their dignity, their respect, their families, their everything. It's important that we teach the truth so we won't have to repeat it. History repeats itself. Before the attack on Emmanuel Baptist Church in Charleston, South Carolina, there was already an attack that happened on that same soil 100 years before Dylan Roof was ever even born or ever even thought about. History repeats itself. Voter rights are being suppressed every day. You think that we'd be through with that considering the Voting Rights Act of 1965, but we are still seeing these same just injustices constantly. Now, there are also studies that show teaching the truth it could benefit everyone. You feel better when you see some psychologically. It's a blessing when you hear stories and see stories that look and sound like you and remind you of uplifting of your people. Everyone should have that. The New Jersey Monitor stated that teaching African American history will allow students to gain empathy for one another. It would also allow Black students and brown students and other students who do not fit the societal norm to feel liberated. The key to Black liberation is through education. And if you think this is just an opinion, you can look at the 107 historically Black colleges and universities that have been operating for centuries, that have produced some of the world's most amazing people, including our current sitting vice president, who is a HBCU grad. We should not limit the contributions or the celebration of African Americans to just February. We cannot do that. We cannot just limit it to February. There are enough African American contributions that made this world what it is, including the stoplight created by Garrett Morgan. People know George Washington Carver for the peanut, but he had over 200 patents, including peanuts, sweet potatoes, and pecans that are still being used today. The Tuskegee Airmen helped the American United States Armed Forces be what it is today. African American history is American history. Before
That's
I
great.
close,
Yeah, and I don't want to interrupt. You're saying wonderful things, but so many of the people here have so many questions, and you already
okay,
answered some anticipated one, which is amazing, which is absolutely fantastic. You educated us so much. I just wanted to ask, and I think you kind of like started to say that. What are some of the specific initiatives or actions that you have taken, and our audience here can take to confront and address the pivotal issues of civil rights for Black people in America nowadays?
well, if you don't have the luxury of taking a class or gaining a whole master's in African American studies like I did, There are things you can do like signing up for these courses. The United States Institute of Diplomacy and Human Rights offers amazing courses on human rights, human trafficking that'll help you become a part of the solution. We know that there is a problem, but another thing you can do is contact your local government. You don't have to wait till the primary or Super Tuesday or any of the general elections. You, if you have the right to vote, exercise it every time. And I mean across the board. Go to school board meetings and find out what is being taught. It's dangerous to not teach the truth. What if they told you that constantly eating fried foods and sugary things was the key to a healthy life? That's not true. But what's being taught in these classrooms is the same. It's not true. There's books on it. Lies My Teacher Told Me. Highly recommend. Great read. But you have to educate yourself and have these conversations. It's not easy to have, but if you see something happening at work, I know that it's dangerous. I know that you may be afraid of retaliation. I know the EEOC is one organization, but I do know that if you allow someone to mistreat you, they're going to continue to do so. That's why people galvanized from the voting rights movement to the integration of schools to changing the names of some of these historical monuments and landmarks. You have to challenge the status quo. You can't just sit silent.
Thank you, Andrea. Somebody's asking if you have a web address or a site or for information for public resources or just to reach you out as well.
Sure. You can find me on LinkedIn and on Facebook as Andrea. It's my first name. L. Wagner. I think on LinkedIn, I'm Andrea Dobines Wagner. I post all of the time. I do have a book forthcoming in May. You can check me out on podcasts. I'm Googleable, but I would love to continue these conversations. I'd love to come speak to your organization, to your school, to your church. I am responsive, but the no must go on. I know they say the show must go on, but please do not let tomorrow be the end of your studies for Black history.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And I think you emphasize a very, very important point, right? Like it transitioned the Black history, which started as a one week Negro week, right? And then in 1976 was transformed into a month. I think should be something that it's being educated on a daily basis. And I know somebody had another question in here as well for you, but out of the limitations of time, we really, really appreciate you being with us today on camera here and sharing from your wisdom, sharing from your knowledge. We're absolutely thrilled to have you here. We are very, very much excited to have you as one of our USIDHR consultants. Thank you for taking the human rights training, and we are looking forward to see how else you are going to help people now having that also under your belt as well.
Thank you so much. You all have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Andrea. I appreciate it. Okay, so now moving on, we were able to retrieve our first speaker of today, Mr. Smothers, Drexel Smothers, and I already read his bio, but I just wanted to emphasize a few before I reintroduce him on stage here. As I said, Drexel is not just a leader, he's a beacon of hope and change. He's currently the founder and the CEO of Let's Go Ministry, and he has dedicated his life to guiding professionals in their quest to inspire positive change. He's focusing on aiding youth and adults and males, particularly those grappling with emotional, social, and decision-making challenges stemming from past trauma. And everything that he does, it's not just commendable, it's transformative. I had the honor and pleasure to meet Drexel on a few different occasions where he not only did the classes at U.S. Institute of Diplomacy and Human Rights, but he's a local, so he volunteered for any opportunity that he had with our organization. So he's definitely a shining star, and so such a pleasure to bring him today on stage with us here on this virtual stage. Let us know, Drexel, if you are able to talk and hear us well.
Thank you, Isabel. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Thank you so much, and thank you for the privilege. I'm not sure what our technical difficulties were earlier, but I appreciate the opportunity.
No problem. Thank you so much, Drexel. So, can you please share with us your journey in completing the USIDHR Human Rights Consultant? And most importantly, we are all keen to hear how you've harnessed this training and any other that you have already to advance the cause of human and civil rights. Your story is not just your own, but a source of inspiration for all of us here. And we are looking forward to learn from your experience.
Thank you so much. I use my platform here at Let's Go Ministries as a certified human rights consultant through USIDHR to bring human rights awareness to locals and global citizens alike. Presently, the nation healthcare system is undergoing a major transition from our illness to a transition of wellness-based approach to our healthcare treatment. One of my initiatives is to assist in advocating for more awareness, education, and policy change to facilitate the advanced healthcare for all individuals. For if we can not only educate our citizens, but our policymakers and those who are in charge of developing the laws and the healthcare system, then we can better shape the future of our healthcare system. I'm not sure if you understand or are aware that our healthcare starts with the women who bear the brunt of the healthcare and birth of our children. If we take care of the women that birth our children, then we can better shape the healthcare system for everyone.
Thank you so much, Drexler. That's so important, and what you emphasize here is enough. I see people excited to bring you back on stage here. So now, Drexel, I'd like to delve a bit deeper into your role currently as a leader and change maker. In the fight for human rights, civil rights, the journey towards equality and justice is multifaceted, as we heard also from Andrea Wagner. Could you share with us what specific initiatives or actions you have undertaken or currently doing in this fight that might inspire some of our audience today, and they can go out there and help their communities as well?
Oh, great. I'd love to bring that awareness. As a innovative change maker here in the local DMV and nationwide, I've taken on the cause of bringing social emotional learning skills, emotional intelligence, and mental health awareness to our youth, adolescent males, and men ages 18 to 45, while ensuring that their global health and their global rights are known and protected. Over the past 3 to 4 years, I've hosted a virtual national social emotional learning skills and emotional intelligence awareness conference to bring the focus and awareness to mental health disparities that need to be addressed for our teens and our adolescents in our nation. According to the statistics for the National Alliance on Mental Health, which is NAMI, 1 in 6 U.S. Youth ages 6 to 17 experience mental health disorders. 7 in 10 youth that are in our juvenile justice system have a mental health condition. 1 in 5 adults experience mental illness each year. These are the reasons why I'm motivated to do the work that I do. I work presently to conference with our local library systems to make sure that our human rights are known to our citizens. I'm working to get our local Youth for Human Rights pamphlets into each and every library system or library that are in our Prince George's and Anne Arundel County libraries to ensure that our vulnerable community members are aware of their human rights. This enables each and every one of our community members to know their human rights and be protected from those that would exploit those human rights.
Thank you so much. What a wonderful mission, right? I would love to be part of that, bringing human rights education for youth in every school. So we have some questions here from the audience, and just to let the audience know, we are in parallel live both on Facebook and on YouTube. So if you posted some comments like a while ago, more than 10 minutes ago, you'll have to repost, or if you had the specific question for Drexel when we had the technical difficulties, please repost them, because once the scroll is going, our team will have to like go through all the comments to see them. But one of the questions we have here for somebody in on YouTube, it's asking, what are your current concerns of the future for our youth in mental health? It's a very important question here.
Oh, that's a great question. My current concerns for our youth in mental health is the extreme use of social media and the work that our current administration is doing to bring regulation and restrict some of the outline pressures that our youth are are um, are exposed to with the use of social media and the lack of legislation currently that exposes our youth to social media. As you know, our youth are extremely vulnerable to impressions. It used to be that if you wanted to say something to someone, you had to do it face to face, or you at least had to make a phone call. Today, you can say something, hit a button, in a matter of minutes. It's global. It's nationwide. You can do something with a push of a button that sends something to millions of people, and you don't have to be face to face with anyone. You don't have to know the person. You don't have to be face to face with them, and you can affect that person for tens of 20 decades and years to come. But we need to do more to advocate for and to speak to the things that affect the emotions and the stability of the mental health of our children.
Thank you so much, Draxel. One last question from somebody also from the public. What are the initiatives that you're currently doing and seems to help the nation here in the USA and other nations, specifically the Black continent? We have a lot of people here who are from different African nations as well.
Great. That's a great question. Aside from the social emotional learning skills, emotional intelligence awareness, and mental health awareness that I work on, along with making sure that the global humanitarian rights of all Americans, really, my focus is on males 18 to 45. But I also work with making sure that our elderly and our communities that are vulnerable are fed. I love to make sure that each and every person that I come in contact with has an opportunity to partake of the nation's food system. And that is something that is just near and dear to my heart. I grew up being taken care of and being sought or being taught by my grandmother while my mother was providing for our home. And that bond that I shared with my grandmother is something that transcends the generations and the gap that we had back then, which I still take to heart today in caring for the elders that I come in contact with. Elders in our communities are precious gems that I think that we need to make sure that we look after them, that we still care for them, that we make sure that they have all of the things that are necessary for them to have the longevity of the life that they have ensured that we can enjoy today. For it is the shoulders that their shoulders that we stand on today in our communities and in this nation, as a matter of fact, globally, for the work that they've done to ensure that we have all of the rights and the privileges that we have today.
Thank you so much, Drexel. And you're very popular. The chat here is exploding with a lot of questions. So we'll ask you to help our audience to answer after the session also in the chat. But one last thing that actually ties into what you just said from Simona, she's asking, how do you inspire the young people that you work with to participate in local organization, volunteer activities, and networking to meet the needs of their fellow youth?
Oh, that's a great question. I try to inspire others by my actions. Um, what I've noticed over the decades that I have tried to be involved with youth is not just to speak words to youth, because in my opinion, in my experience, youth don't listen to, they don't just listen to what you say, they watch what you do. So you can't just say that you're going to do something, you have to show them. You can tell them what you think, but they're more adept to your actions. They will listen to you, but they're not going to take action. They're not going to follow you. They don't want to know what you know until they know how much you care.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I would like to welcome and again encourage you, Drexel. If anyone wants to continue being in contact with you, where can they do that so that they continue asking you this type of question and get inspired by your wonderful work?
Oh, thank you so much. It's only by God's grace that I'm allowed to have a business that they can check up on Let's Go Ministries Inc. www.letsgoministry.com. You can find me on Instagram, Let's Go Ministry. And you can find me on Facebook and also on LinkedIn, Drexel.Smothers.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. I know you have other commitments of speaking at other Black History celebrations today, so I'll let you go and I'll see you later as well. Thank you again for making the time today, and we really appreciate that you finally were able to share from your wisdom here on the screen. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much again for the invitation.
You're very welcome. Okay, so next, we are moving into our next speaker of today, Miss Jeanette Mata. She's not only a trailblazer advocate, but she actually took all the trainings that we ever put out there at U.S. Institute of Diplomacy and Human Rights. She's a human rights consultant level 1 and level 2. She's done the international business and diplomatic protocol training and many, many, many others. And more importantly, it's not that she's done them, putting them onto a nice wall in her office. She's using them out there to continue to inspire others to not only promote education, but also helping thousands and thousands of immigrants. It's my honor to introduce our next speaker, and I'm going to have her here on the screen while I'm reading her bio here. Ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to introduce Jeanette Mata, a remarkable individual whose life and work is a testament to the power of dedication and compassion in the realm of human and civil rights advocacy. As an Afro-Latino, Jeanette brings a unique and invaluable perspective to her work, enriching our understanding of the diverse experiences within the human rights landscape. Jeanette's remarkable journey includes being the founder of Miel and Canela Foundation, a foundation through which she has provided assistance to thousands of immigrants and their families. Her work is a shining example of true commitment to humanitarian causes, bridging cultural divides and offering support to those in need. In addition to her remarkable work with her foundation, Jeanette is also a pivotal member of the task force combating human trafficking in Florida. This role further highlights her unwavering dedication to protecting the rights and dignity of all individuals, particularly those who are the most vulnerable. So I'm so pleased and honored to have you here with us, Jeanette, today.
Thank you for having me. You know that how dear I hold USIDHR, you and Manuel and the staff to my heart, and you know that I will always participate in any invitation you extend, because we have to continue voicing out not only how you transform, how USIDHR transform lives, but that it's a legacy that you are leaving, because we are an extension of you, and we have been able to together, all the graduates of the Institute have touched lives globally, worldwide, and I am so proud to be among this wealth of knowledge, and how your dedication to human rights has extended through us, and you have given us the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Janet. So, talking about your experience with the USIDHR Human Rights Consultant training and the other training, it's incredible, valuable to all of us. Can you share a little bit how this training and all your life experiences has enhanced you to in your ability to advocate for human rights and how you apply this on a daily basis in your work?
So I have always been a defender of social justice. It was just, instilled in me, and I was born with that. And my trajectory and my experience in my career, especially in the political, social justice, and human rights field, once I got a hold of the trainings at the institute, it broadened my knowledge and how to extend it even further internationally. This has truly transformed my life. I never, ever knew that taking the very first human rights consulting training, that it was going to change, how I was looking at myself, how I was being able to provide better services to the community, but to be a real advocate for this, and how the impact of what, the knowledge that we have obtained at the Institute has transformed communities and families, one person at a time, just speaking to people about the rights that they have as a human being. And it has, I can't emphasize enough for everyone globally and everybody that's on this platform today to learn about your human rights, because there's one thing that I learned, and that I will always thank the Institute, is that the only reason why we don't have world peace is because we don't have enough peacemakers, and this will transforms us into peacemakers. We are trailblazers, we are overcomers, we are waymakers, but we have become that because of these trainings. And I tell this about whatever trainings they put out, I'm taking. I'm taking, because it truly helps us to help other people, and we are an extension of this. But this makes you and broadens you to become a true peacemaker. And it starts at home, wherever you're at, in anywhere in the world. Take these trainings and learn, because you will become a peacemaker, being able to make a difference in your communities, because it starts at home.
So beautifully put. Thank you so much, Jeanette. And it's so wonderful. And we are eager to hear about the specific initiatives and actions you have lately been involved in. Can you enlighten us how you've worked to address key issues that promote equality and justice? I know a great deal about you, but I would love for the audience to at least hear part of the wonderful work that you do at Miel and Canela Foundation, together with your team there in Florida, and helping so many families.
So, taking Black History Month, that's the topic. We have emphasized, and because of the location that we're at, we're in Florida, and there is such a huge community of immigrants here. And the only reason why here in our nation, so I'm taking it at home. We're in Florida. I'm located in Tampa. We are located in Tampa. But the reason why there are so many undocumented individuals in our country is because of the lack of knowledge of their human rights. So they have their human rights, and they have their rights as immigrants, but we have taken it upon ourselves to be the beacons of this education, human rights education, because nobody takes the time to give them this knowledge and to really protect. Article 29 is responsibility. We have to protect each other. We have to protect each other's rights. So we have taken it upon ourselves to educate them, to give them that tool, that to empower them, that the reason why they're undocumented is because they don't know that they have the right, number one, to be here, and number two, because nobody has taught them how to go through the process of legalizing, of going through that process. And so I'm humbly very, very proud, because we have had like 100% ratio of success with all those that, number one, have taken our courses, and that have also, we have created advocates in their own communities, because now they know. And it's just that one thing. It's just one person at a time. You take, the time to tell them, hey, you have the right to be here, but this is what you have to do. This is the process. And so we have been able to people, our pride is that people that have been here for decades, that have established themselves here for decades, that have, businesses, that have families here, and still don't have a document, that they're labeled like undocumented, only because they didn't know their rights. So thanks to, all this knowledge that we have, that the Institute brings to us, we continue to be an extension so that people can live the way in dignity and in liberty, because we're born free. And so that's what we are emphasizing, the most, because everybody that's born here has the same resources. We have the knowledge, we're blessed in that way. But it's the people that come that, we have become, the voice of the voiceless, of the forgotten. Because to me, I can't see somebody living without, only because they don't know their rights, and that they are living in conditions and feel like they are different from us, when that they're not
Well,
supposed to
going
enjoy.
going into that exactly, we have some questions from the audience, particularly. So Benech is asking, what type of support do you provide right now to immigrant families with a view towards their integration, which is exactly what you talked about. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
No, no,
I
no,
feel like this is addressing directly that question.
So we do all services from A through Z in immigration. So we bring families, individuals, they come here. Number one, they learn about their rights, human rights. They learn about their rights as immigrants, and we take them through the process. So anyone can call us, anyone can come. We cover the entire nation, because then we refer them where they could get help in their states, but they can learn how to go through the process of becoming legal. One thing that I could take just 1 second to say is that they have the notion that that the role of immigration is to deport, when it's not so. Immigration is there to process. And so that's what they need to learn. And that's what we do.
That that's perfectly right. And another question is, how do you feel if human rights is not executed as it's supposed to be? How do we ensure that the human rights is taken in effect? And do you think the human rights is being applied in the Black continent as well? And I know, like, tackling and adding a little bit to us, like, we want to also emphasize the relevance, right, of having you here on Black history, because so many people don't realize about, like, the Black history behind Afro Latinos as well, who put the bedrock to this country, to this nation as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly, and I was going to allude to that. And thank you for the question. Human rights is just, and I'm sorry, but I have to say, we still live in segregation. I mean, unfortunately, we're in the 21st century, and we're still segregated. There's still slavery. There's still, so we, the key is to educate. We have to educate each other and learn about, what's here for us, because we are born free. So how do we ensure that, human rights is taken in effect? That way, educating, because then they, it just changes their perspective, and knowing what they can and cannot do, or how they have to go about it. And that's what it is. It's just lack of knowledge. And it's just, and that's what we do. Everybody has to write. When something is not right or not clear, we come in to protect their human rights, to protect their civil rights, to protect them as human beings, because a lot of times it's just the color of our skin. They think that Black is just Black. And we're in all colors. We are all colors. That's why I am so proud to say that everyone, they know we have identified ourselves, because we say we are everybody. We are everybody. So it's like women empowered, for us, women empowered. And so we have, that's one of our initiatives, but we are everybody. Miel y Canela Foundation is everybody.
I love that. And, like, it leads me directly to our conclusion here. Where can everyone here continue staying in contact with you, or reach out to your organization for services as well?
Go to our website, www.mycfoundation.com, and you can call us at 813-708-9420. We would be more than happy to embrace you, make you part of our family, and to teach you and help you, assist you in any way we can. Remember, we are everyone.
Thank you so much, Jeanette, and
Thank you for
so
having me.
wonderful to have you today. Thank you for making yourself available to be here, and
Absolutely.
I really appreciate your advocacy in the field and in the community. I'm looking forward to continue our journey together and have you here in the USIDHR family. You're such a great example of somebody who's not only taken the certification but has dedicated their life to continue the education and like use the education that you got to educate others in your
Exactly.
journey.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much, Janet. Okay, thank you, everyone. I'm so amazed by all the wonderful comments here in the chat. I keep like scrolling through them, and my team is like swifting through them as well, sending me future ones. So now I would like to introduce our guest, our next guest speaker, all the way from Canada, because we are an international organization all through in the way, right? So I'm going to invite him on the screen here, and then I'm going to read his wonderful bio. Thank you for waiting, sir. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's my distinct pleasure to introduce you to Mr. Cesar Ndema Musa. Mr. Ndema Musa currently holds the influential position of Eastern Ontario Regional Director of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusivity in Child Welfare. In addition to this vital role, he's also the president of North-South Development Roots and Culture Canada. Through his commendable work as an educator, facilitator, and human rights consultant, Mr. Ndema Musa has made significant strides in combating systemic racism, anti-Black racism, gender inequity, and socioeconomic disparities. His efforts have been crucial in the journey towards creating a more inclusive and equitable society. And I'll add here that also Mr. Cesar Ndema Musa is one of our human rights consultant awardees from from last year for the U.S. Institute of Diplomacy and Human Rights. We are very proud of your work. Thank you for joining us today, Cesar. You are muted.
Thank you so much for having me, Isabel. It's truly a pleasure and an honor to be present with so many distinguished speakers who are doing great work in the US and worldwide.
Thank you. I really, really appreciate. So, Cesar, allow me to like just tell you by your first name, please. Your experience in completing the USIDHR Human Rights Consultant training is of immense interest to our audience. Could you share how this training and many others that you've done throughout your years has empowered you in the ongoing efforts to advance human rights?
It's a great question. Our organization, North-South Development Roots and Culture Canada, actually was already promoting human rights education. This is greatly thanks to our CEO, Mrs. Ketia Peters. So one of the things that would happen is that in our offices, we still do, by the way, we do have all the human rights, and we make sure to teach them to our Black youth, Black adults, and Black seniors in order to empower them. Taking the course with USIDHR became a further step in terms of, in the world that we live in, to be certified, to basically have, kind of that check mark, but that check mark, that's not just a check mark, but really an experience, a journey, and also the credibility of an organization that's on the ground, not just online education, even going to Washington for education, but to have that education that comes from an organization that is making change, and for us to become associated with other change makers in the world. I'm a Pan-Africanist. My vision is a global vision for Pan-Africanism, and that is why to be connected with others who are doing great work to address anti-Black racism, yes, but to address systemic racism on the four corners of the world, because as we all know, as even my favorite movie, Cloud Atlas, free promotion, as he says, everything is connected. And this is really what we're talking about. Everything is connected, even though you may not know what other people are going through. There are connections that can be found, and for that, we need to be educated, and we need to see those connections and not just to be educated, but to work concretely to bring change.
Wonderful. Thank you. Such an important message, the message of education. Now, Caesar, tell me, as a leader, activist, and change maker into your own community and working in this ongoing fight for civil and human rights, what specific initiatives or actions can you share with us that you've been part of or led? We are just keen to learn about your endeavors in addressing the pressing issues and promoting equality and justice. I know you do this on a daily basis. So
Mhm.
maybe share with us a particular story or some moments of wisdom from your current actions that you're doing at the organizations that you lead.
Well, I would give three examples, notably the context we're talking about. One example that I will give is how we have at Roots and Culture Canada a crime prevention program that aims to take youth, Black youth, but when I say Black youth, we do not turn down the white friends or Arab, Asian friends that they may come with. So we basically take at risk youth, and yes, they do get to have free basketball after school, but we provide them with mentorship education on human rights, yes, but also making sure that we can bring professionals of different professions, such as police, lawyers, but very much Mr. and Mrs. will look like them. So, Black professionals to educate them on the alternatives to the stereotypes that they have to constantly be bombarded with from TV, from online content, from also the community, not expecting much from them. We make sure to let them know that yes, they can succeed. We can help to show them the way. And beyond education, it requires an identity basis, a sense of Black consciousness that will help them strive forward. Another example I can give is how, speaking of this, a few years ago in 2017, with my assistant in Montreal, Quebec, Montreal in Canada, we worked with a Haitian young man in his mid 20s to do an entire work on genetics with the American lab, the African American lab, AfricanAncestry.com. We did the work to find his African ancestry, and as such, we organized from educating this youth regarding African history, and himself was very much willing to learn regarding African spirituality, to learn about history and culture, and thus, with the results of the genetics, to go to Africa to connect with the tribe of his ancestors. And some people are doubtful of this. He looked like the king of the tribe, like a father and son. This young man, 6'10", the king 6'7", 6'8". And the last example I can give is how in 2021, following the earthquake in Haiti, but as well the assassination of the former president Jovenel Moise, we at Roots and Culture Canada, working with other organizations from around the world, Middle East, Southeast Asia, we basically raised funds and were able to ship containers of goods, rice, but also wheelchairs and other needs to the people on the ground in Haiti through the churches, through community organizations. Unfortunately, the situation has deteriorated, but we are not just about the big speeches or the education, we are also about the concrete ground on the action and collaborating and taking action.
So many wonderful and real stories. Thank you so much for sharing on that. I'm just gonna switch right now to the questions from the public, because there are so many interesting coming up here. So one of them is, what challenges do Black Canadians encounter in securing housing, and how does racial discrimination play a role in this nowadays?
It's an excellent question, because housing is indeed a crisis in Canada. And one of the things that are being very unfortunate is how international students are becoming blamed. And of course, that is a fallacy. That is just a false propaganda. One of the things that happen is that part of systemic racism housing discriminates on Black Canadians from a matter of identity, from a matter of the perception of Blacks as bad tenants, as bad payers, aka unable to afford where they want
Stereotyping
to
that
live.
goes on, right?
Exactly. It's very similar to the United States, with, of course, an important element that people tend to forget. Canada is a cold country. And as such, when you have people who come from warmer slash tropical climates, the difficulties that may come with housing, and whether we look at the fact of being able to secure housing, but being able securing housing is not just to get the house, it's to be able to maintain and to keep living there. You also have to look at the fact of people who have to come up together, be able to live, but being able to sustain having their children, and very much as much for Caribbeans and notably for Africans, they have to be sending money back home. They have to be able to help families back home. And this just adds to the layers of systemic racism, as socioeconomically, the very system makes them weaker to be able to secure not just housing, safe quality housing when we look at the quality of the neighborhoods in question, but we also look at issues of, health and safety, etc., etc.
Wonderful. Thank you. And I had no idea about that, right? So you're getting all very beautiful comments here. They are thanking you for your wisdom and kind heart, and they are welcoming you to Connecticut, USA.
Thank you.
We like you, Robert says that. And another question from the audience, Alan, it's asking, hi, Caesar, how do you use your human rights knowledge in your daily activities as a Pan-Africanist?
An excellent question. It's an excellent question, and here also I invite the USIDHR in terms of the training to incorporate more African knowledge. Why? As we speak about human rights, and you're asking on a daily activities, my brother, one of the things that we must understand is that the very notion, the basis of human rights, I dare to say, actually began in Africa. Let's be careful. I am not one of those to say anything good and everything started in Africa, but follow me here. If we look at the 42 laws of Maat in terms of properly treating each other human beings in terms of what you should not do, such as you should not steal, you should not commit murder, that started in Kemet, ancient pharaonic Black Egypt. We are talking about 4,000 to 6,000 years ago. But even when you look in the Middle Ages, we're talking about the 13th or 14th century, the Charter of the Manding. The Charter of the Manding, that was already a recognition that beyond the notion of treating prisoners, we should treat each other more humanly as civilians. If I give another example, in the 18th century, we have the notion of the first state to forbid enslavement and slavery on its ground. It was in the area of today, Senegal. So we have a basis of human rights in Africa that has to be represented today when we, notably as Black people and those who are Pan-Africanists, so those who stand for the ideology of Pan-Africanism, we have to bring forward the African philosophy that I teach in all my conferences, in all my trainings. I teach 4 African philosophies, and one of them, the second one that I teach, is Ubuntu. Ubuntu of Madiba, Nelson Mandela, and Reverend Desmond Tutu. Ubuntu, which means I am because you are, a recognition of one another's humanity. How can I claim Ubuntu? How can I claim to recognize your humanity and not treat you as I would want to be treated? This is the golden rule before the Abrahamic religions. This is the golden rule all the way back from Kemet, all the way back to African spirituality. So as I live that truth, as I wear my traditional hat as a Sawa from Cameroon, I have a duty that I embrace wholeheartedly to treat my fellow human as such, because I stand on the shoulders of giants. Many of them will die before reaching my age. Many of them will never live to see the concretization of the work and Pan-Africanism. So the ideology to advance human rights and dignity for the independence of African peoples and their dignity as human beings. Pan-Africanism rests on the very notion of human rights at a time when Black people, end of the 19th century, were living in segregation in the Americas and were living under colonization in Africa. And when you look at, example, Southeast Asia, notably India, the caste system that has strong racial undertones for thousands of years, the level of alienation, making it that you can have Black Indians darker than me, but to them being called Black is an insult. My global vision of Pan Africanism is to address all of that on a daily basis, to give pride, to give education, to give dignity for all.
Beautiful, Cesar. And I think you launched a very interesting initiative there. And I would love, as you all can see, and I hope everyone can agree with me, I would love to invite you and every speaker of today, right, to maybe like do a short module that we can include in the human rights education training, because I feel it's so, so important to bring in who best to share this knowledge with others. That's why we bring you are the experts, right? You are the people who are on the ground every single day doing grassroots advocacy. I don't want our students, and I'm so proud of you and all the other students that are learning, but they are coming to us, they are coming and you and also others because they want to learn from somebody who has been there and has been doing it, not from books, right? We are not talking here from books. So I launched this open invitation for you and all the speakers of today to submit your proposal, and would love to have you as part of the human rights training. I feel that's important. And I think with your mention about the caste system, actually somebody had a question on how are we able to come across the discrimination based on caste and religion. 1 minute if you want to touch on that subject a little bit. I know you are a great delta of knowledge, but we have to move on to the next speaker, but I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. To make it very short, I am a member of the Academic Society of the Global Center for Religious Research, and I also address religion very much as a Pan-Africanist in terms of, very bluntly, I oppose Christianity and Islam as ideologies upon descendants of Africa, so on both sides of the ocean, because ultimately the truth that is very uncomfortable for people to accept, very uncomfortable, whether we talk about religion or the caste system as in Hinduism. It is estimated that 90% of Black people in the world, so not just Africa or the Americas, 90% of Black people in the world live in systems of faith where the representation of the God is white. The prophets are white. The messiahs are white. The saviors are white. And such creates a psycho-emotional lens where whiteness becomes elevated, becomes better. If it's hard to understand, I invite people to listen to the 1967 speech of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, a Nobel Peace Prize and champion of human rights, and a Reverend, his 1967 speech on YouTube, Black is Beautiful, in which he goes there to address and challenge the notion of how, even when you look in the dictionary, everything associated to Black is seen as negative and evil and dirty, while everything associated to white is seen as pure, holy, and desirable. The connection is psycho-emotional, and as such, this is where we have to conduct a psycho-racial therapy of Black people in terms of their own dignity, their own sense of worth and value to truly become fully human beings without inferiority complexes that are subconscious, inferiority complexes that many deny, but inferiority complexes that are seen in power relations, in geopolitics, in culture, in the very image that Blacks, from children to adults to seniors, see of themselves in terms of their belonging in the world and the construction of humanity in this 21st century that is predicted to count 1/3 of humans to be African by the year 2050, latest 2100. We cannot have unhealthy, complex Black people. It is not healthy for the world. It is not healthy for themselves, nor for Black families.
Thank you so much, Cesar. Thank you for, dedicating your time and being with us today. Finally, like, where can people reach you out at?
People can reach me through the website of Roots and Culture Canada. You can also reach me on Facebook, César Rimy, Rimy. And now I am on Instagram, but please don't get me wrong. I don't know how to use it and all that. But really, the website of Roots and Culture Canada is the best way to reach me. And also Facebook, César Rimy, Rimy.
Thank you so much, Cesar. Have a wonderful day, and we are looking forward to see those modules up there. Hopefully soon on our training. I think the wisdom that you brought today, it's really really inspiring. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Isabel. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And please be safe. Remember, everything is connected. And know you are loved. Thank you so much.
Beautiful message. Thank you as well. So now moving further, we have two more speakers left. So I want you to continue. And I love the fact that I don't see this number being dropped here in terms of the viewership. I really appreciate it. And talking about Dr. Martin Luther King, one of our speakers here, her family was colleagues and friends with Dr. King and Rosa Parks and all that. So stay tuned. I don't want you to leave the session for nothing in the world. Right now, it's my pleasure and honor to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Rakim Rogers. I'm going to invite her here with us on the screen while I'm reading her bio. Her work and dedication embodies the spirit of true commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Dr. Rogers is a highly respected DEI consultant, diversity, equity, and inclusion, with the Department of Veteran Affairs, where her focus is on critical and often overlooked issue, improving healthcare and equity for veterans, with a special emphasis on addressing health disparities among African American males. Through her invaluable work, Dr. Rogers plays a pivotal role in ensuring fair access to healthcare for all veterans, striving tirelessly to bridge gaps and dismantle barriers in healthcare accessibility. Her efforts are instrumental in promoting equity and justice within the healthcare system, particularly for those who have served our nation. In addition to her professional role, Dr. Rogers extends her impact to volunteering as a committee member for the National African American Male Wellness Agency in Houston. Her involvement here further showcases her dedication to addressing healthcare disparities and promoting wellness in the African American male community. Without further ado, thank you so much, Dr. Rogers, for being here with us today.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the warm welcome.
You're very, very welcome. Dr. Rogers, your journey with the USIDHR Human Rights Consultant Training is obviously an immense interest to us all. So in order to bridge into like the work that you're currently doing, first, can you share some of the experiences you've had with this training and how it just empowered you to further your work in advancing human rights and specifically working in the context of healthcare equity?
Absolutely. First and foremost, I want to thank everyone for the privilege of your time today. I do think that time is our most valuable commodity, so I'm so honored to be here, and I thank you for sharing this time with us. I would tell you that when we talked about this question and I looked at it, journey, the word journey continues to come up because it has been a journey. I've worked in diversity, equity, inclusion for over 2 decades. But I look at it as far as the training that I've received as a human rights consultant as being an extension of that. In that regard, I'm able to really get to the grassroots of some of the inequities within the healthcare system, to look at the disparities within healthcare, but to also bring in best practices from the human rights perspective so that we can understand that we all have a duty to treat everyone with dignity and respect. And within the healthcare system, we can't afford to meet patients and meet those that have critical needs without compassion, and treating everyone humanely has to be first and foremost. So the human rights consultant area, it has really afforded me the opportunity to not only look at diversity, equity, inclusion from the lens of healthcare, but also how do we bring that into a larger conversation, to take that into our communities to make sure everyone is treated with dignity and respect.
That's beautiful. Again, as said, and you put it nice, so beautifully, right? Like it's not just a diploma, you put it out there on the wall. You want to be able to actually use the principles that you learn including the ones that you've accumulated throughout your life, throughout your own experiences, through your own lens, and just go out there and trying to promote change and promote that through education. And that's very, very important. So as a leader, an activist, change maker, we are eager to learn about the specific initiatives or actions you have taken to confront and address key issues in the fight for civil rights for Black people in America. Can you share how have you contributed to promoting equality and justice both in your community and through your current experiences and work?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that question. And so I'm engaged with the African American Male Wellness Agency. I would tell you that agency, it really touched my heart when I started to find out some of the critical areas that I didn't even know, that Black males die at a rate of 12 years younger than their counterparts. That was the area that really drew me in, not only as a D&I consultant, as a healthcare professional, but also to figure out, how do I roll up my sleeves? How do I take my experience from being a human rights consultant and look at how do I go into those neighborhoods within Houston? To make sure that we let everyone know that there is an opportunity for you to raise a standard in your healthcare. Last year, we did our inaugural march. We had 5,000 in attendance. And for many, this was the first time that they ever received screening as far as their healthcare, to understand their baseline, as far as their numbers for cholesterol, as far as understanding their blood pressure, and to put them on a solid plan. So this year, our second march, it will be April the 27th, and we're expecting 10,000 at this march. So looking at the impact and looking at being at the cornerstone and meeting the needs of the community, taking the piece from being a human rights consultant and everything else that I garner and hold near and dear to me, I can see the residual impact. I can see those stories of those that have come back to say, you saved my life. You gave me an opportunity to let me know that there should not be barriers to access when it comes to healthcare. You gave me an opportunity to empower myself to really take my health seriously. So that's some of the work that I'm doing with the African American Male Wellness Agency. And again, we're expecting 10,000, the magnitude of that, to be at the point of impact, to know that within a short year, we've gone from 5,000 that attended, and many, that was their first time having an opportunity to see a healthcare professional and to really have someone that wanted to meet them at the point of impact with dignity and respect, to say, I hear you, I see you, but I want to make sure that your wellness is not just one dynamic of who you are, that we're looking at you as a total person. And to know that this year, that the work that we've done is yielding 10,000 that will be in attendance, but we're adding more to that, to the fact that last year we had services dealing with behavioral health and mental health, but we're looking at the fact that it cannot be just a segment. That is a part of the total person. When you look at total wellness and you look at well-being, you can't negate the mental health aspect. So to that regard, I've taken some initiatives of my own, and I started another company. It's called SIPS, Stay in Purpose Sundays. Sundays are the day where so many have anticipatory anxiety. And that causes you not to show up as the best version of yourself on Mondays. I've noticed that within my community with African Americans, there's usually some apprehension when you start to talk about behavioral health and mental health. With this approach that we're using with this company, SIPS, and I do meet up in small groups, we're breaking down some of those barriers so we can have that conversation to let people know it's okay to not be okay, but we're addressing anxiety and anticipatory anxiety, and how that prevents you from showing up as the best version of yourself, and to include how that prevents you from even doing small steps such as going to go see your healthcare provider because you're concerned, you're worried, and there's not a clinical diagnosis for anticipatory anxiety. It can hit us at any time. When you're thinking about a job interview, it may hit you, but in this case, studies have shown that on Sundays, that's when most have anxiety attacks, heart attacks, and other concerns, because they're thinking about Monday. They're thinking about what they're going to walk into, or they're going into a situation where there is no sense of belonging, where they're just a shell of themselves, or they have to shrink in order to fit into their environment. So I'm attacking the entire wellness piece with that company, SIPS, Stay in Purpose Sundays, to try to break down some of those barriers and having those conversations at the direct point of impact.
Beautiful, and good luck with that new venture. I think it's such an important issue and aspect, such a great discovery. I will like dare to say, because I had no idea, right? Like I know, and it makes total sense the research you are saying. So I'm just gonna lead into some questions from the audience right now. Somebody's asking, Simona, how do you integrate education and activism to safeguard educational opportunities, guarantee safe maternity and childbirth for young African American women? So it's an important healthcare issue, and enhance their access to healthcare and mental health services.
I love that question. And that requires engaging at the point of impact. And so, in that regard, we look at areas to where we go inside of hospitals and we try to team up with their education system to say, do you need an advocate? Because sometimes within the patient advocacy system, which most hospital systems have that within the United States, there may not be someone that looks like that patient. So we usually go in and we volunteer and say, do you need a volunteer, someone that looks like that person? But for the education piece, it requires just taking the opportunity to unveil the stats that are out there. When you look at the maternal death rates, when you look at African American women in particular, and just educating people on that, but taking that into the community as well too, because African American women and women of color, they're twice as likely to die in childbirth as well too. So that access to care piece is a continuous education piece to let people know that there are opportunities, but that many don't know, because some of the things that we take for granted, we're speaking right now and using internet connection. Some don't have that. So that's why we show up at community centers and we educate them. We show up at the hospitals. We show up at churches as well too, because we can't negate the fact that this is a privilege, this conversation that we're having right now. There are many that don't have that privilege. So we go to the point of impact. I can speak for myself and those that are with me, because we're not not like-minded, we're like-hearted, in that we have a heart for equity and making sure that everyone is treated with dignity and respect. So we roll up our sleeves on a weekend and we go to different community centers to have that conversation. I hope that answers the question.
Oh, beautifully put, Dr. Rogers. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and sharing from your daily activities and lives and action. There are so many questions here. Fortunately, we're not going to have time to tackle all those. So I invite you to definitely, like, when you have a moment, to maybe try to answer. The videos are going to stay on. But in conclusion here, because I feel you brought on so many important points, and healthcare and education on healthcare aspect is such an important human right. I know I realized that for myself when we were hosting the International Summit on Disability Rights, when some of the human rights consultants or the people we are trying to educate on human rights have had serious question how disability right is actually a human right. And while we all focus on a different niche, like, gender equality, women, race, equity, inclusion, and all that, healthcare equity, let's call it like that, it's such an important topic nowadays. So I would love to again launch the question now. Cesar came with the initiative, right, to write up a module on that so that we can share with our audience as well. So I invite you on that. Lastly, Dr. Rogers, where can people stay in contact with you and continue the conversation?
Absolutely. So a couple of different ways. My parent company is Beyond 94 Feet. I am a sports agent for the WNBA and for FIBA. So I don't think that you should be in the box. I live my life in just full color. So that website is support at beyond94ft.com. That's one way to reach me. If you're on Instagram, I did hear Cesar say he does not do Instagram. I do. You can find me on Instagram as well too, under my name, Dr. Raquel Rogers, or Beyond 94 Feet is my Instagram handle. And for the new company I talked about, SIPS, which is Stay in Purpose Sundays. It is www.stayinpurpose.com. So I can be reached in any of those methods, and I'll be happy to serve you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rogers. It was such a pleasure to meet you and join this virtual stage with you. Please continue to stay connected on social media with us, and I, launch an invitation every time you stop by Washington, D.C., stop by our offices as well. I would love to see how else I can support you in your mission that you're currently doing.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you so much to everyone in the audience for the privilege of your time today.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Rogers. Okay, so moving on to the last but not the least, right? Speaker of today's session. This was such an inspiring and motivating and amazing educational webinar. Don't you agree with me? So, ladies and gentlemen, it's my profound honor to introduce our next distinguished guest speaker. And I'll like even dare to say keynote speaker. We kept the best for the end, right? The Honorable Dr. Teda Banks. I'm just gonna have her join me here on the screen while I'm reading her bio. So Dr. Banks' lives and career are a testament to a deep-seated commitment to civil rights, women's rights, and human rights. Originally from Liberia and raised in Detroit, Michigan, she's from a family deeply immersed in civil rights activism. She's the proud daughter of the late Dr. Victoria Banks and Reverend Dr. A. Banks Jr., who are not only civil rights colleagues of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Mrs. Rosa Parks, but also pioneers in their own right. Dr. Banks has had an illustrious career marked by significant accomplishments. She is the chair of the World Federation of United Nations Associations, where she continues her relentless advocacy for global human rights. Her dedication to social justice is further exemplified through her role as the executive director of the King Association for Nonviolence, a position appointed by Coretta Scott King herself. Furthermore, her leadership as president of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women and as a consultant to the Frederick Douglass Family Foundation cements her status as a vanguard in the fight for equality and justice. And I made there to add also that Dr. Teda Banks was also one of the recipients of the USIDHR Human Rights Awards last year. So we are so honored and happy to have you here, Dr. Banks. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you. And it's been a wonderful webinar, and it has held up to the theme of unity in diversity. So it's diversity not only between races, but within race, and diversity of cultures and nationals. So this is just a wonderful opportunity, and especially for this first effort in terms of Black History Month. So yes, we know the historical stories, the traditions of the greatness and the people that we've talked about, but also what is great about this session is it's highlighting people who are currently making history and impacting history and changing the trajectory of where our society is going in and hopefully where it needs to go. So I think, I really applaud you in terms of having the vision to say, not only do we need to talk about the past, which all of us are going to do and have done all month, which is wonderful, but also how knowing and seeing what's down the road. What are some of the challenges? What are some of the barriers that still need to be overcome? And how do we use human rights and the training and the knowledge of that to address all of these?
That's totally right, Dr. Banks. And I really appreciate you saying that because that's true. And actually, for this session in particular, we launched a call to action to all our USIDHR human rights consultants to invite them to apply to be considered as a speaker in this session. So what you've seen today is some of the top human rights consultants that you not only see their work necessarily out there, right? So I wanted to obviously put a little bit of spotlight on all of you today because you are doing such a wonderful work in the community. And it's not only because or due to the human rights training that we do at the Institute. I like to think that taking that training and speaking of that, right, it just augmented your current work. So can you share with us how this training has influenced your work and how have you utilized it to further advance the cause of human rights?
Oh, well, certainly. The whole issue of human rights is just the expansion. If I talk about my background and my family's background in working with the civil rights era, this is the expansion of that. Because while we were dealing with the civil rights in the U.S. during the 60s and early 70s, there were other countries and other cultures that were dealing with human rights. Civil rights means that what? That there are rights that a particular country already has written and doctrined. And that if those are violated, then the fight is for those rights that have already been stated. So what happens when we have countries or areas where there are groups of people who do not have any rights in the first place? So that is a prime example of what was going on in South Africa. So when South Africa's fight against apartheid, that was to gain rights. So theirs really was blasted in terms of globally as human rights, because they had to establish the fact that they could get rights in the first place. So now we're at the point in history where if we look across the globe and all of the countries and what's going on, we are facing human rights challenges in so many areas. And so going through the institutions, training and meeting other people who are doing like work, it really created a coalescence of people of like minds and a network, so that I know that if I am doing something in the US, there is a partner in South Africa, or a partner in India, or a partner in Korea, who is also facing similar challenges, but having the same foundation of human rights, and knowing what those are, and knowing beyond that, because we pretty much know what we have the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, right? And you spell those out, but knowing what they are, but also knowing how to address them, and what are strategies. That is the important part. If we look at the Sustainable Development Goals from the United Nations, all of those come under the umbrella of human rights, because our basic concern is, how do people address all of these, and how are people made safe and secure in all of these 17 areas? And that comes under that whole umbrella of human rights. So knowing how to address them, knowing strategies, and also how to communicate those strategies to others. So we become trainers of trainers, to be able to extend that work to other organizations and to other individuals.
That's totally correct, Dr. Banks, and you touched some very, very important points that I would like to get the chance to develop on those a little bit more. And one of the things you said is like the SDG goals, right? So they are totally not like copying the human rights. So when you look at the Universal Declaration and the human rights in the Universal Declaration, those were the ideals, right? Those were like the countries coming together and saying, all these rights should be respected. However, like later on, it was decided we need to give people some actionable steps, right? Some goals, some actionable steps that they can achieve. So they are obviously construed to match that perfectly. So that leads me into my question. And I'm like looking at the chat here, and I can't wait to read some of the questions from the audience as well. But they are very, very excited you being here with us today. So as a renowned leader and change maker, we are eager to hear about the specific initiatives that you have undertaken in the fight for civil rights for the Black people in America. What key issues have you addressed in this fight, and have you promoted equality and justice in your community? And I know that you've done that also on a global stage.
Yeah. I'll just point out two things that stand out to me. One had to do with, and I don't limit Black history to America. Other countries also celebrate Black history, and since with the diversity of speakers we've had today, we see that we're talking about the diaspora when we talk about Black history, African history, any of the Afro-Cubans throughout the Caribbean and all. So Black history is a global history. Because our footprint has been on almost in every country. And unfortunately, some of the struggles have been similar wherever we have been, but peculiarly here in the US with the peculiar institution of American slavery. So that has been a uniqueness that has been attributed here that made the fight a bit different than elsewhere. But one of which was the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which was in Liberia, but it impacted America because many Liberians had come to America, and after the Civil War, the relationship between Liberia and the U.S. Was so close that they're almost like mother-child relationship. That Liberia was born out of efforts here in the U.S. and also in Jamaica. But after the Civil War, there was such tension there that we had to get into peace building. How do we do peace building? And certainly the UN had a significant role in that. But one of the strategies was to have a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. We saw it broadcasted when South Africa did it. after apartheid issues. But with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, we had hearings here in the United States, and we had 2 generations of people here in the U.S. testifying about that. And so I was instrumental in assisting in constructing the structure, allowing American residential librarians to participate in something that was happening in their home countries because of the diaspora impact on that. And then more so, it's been in the education realm. As an educator, I've studied from the K through 12 through the collegiate levels, looking at disparities, inequalities in the educational system. And we certainly know the history of the Brown versus Board of Education decision in 1954, which serves as that pin in the historical timeline. So the assessment then becomes, how far have we progressed since the Brown versus Board of Education? Have we achieved equality? Have we achieved access for all students in terms of the educational realm? Because we know that is the foundation for everything else that's going to happen in their lives. Whether we're talking about their further educational goals, whether we're talking about their economic goals, whether we're talking about their housing goals, right? Whether we're talking about political and governmental policy goals. And so we have unfortunately seen that that disparity, while it was on the pathway of progress, with COVID, it has greatly been affected. And COVID has affected the educational progress of children throughout the world. So let's be clear about that. We've lost about 5 to 7 years of progress if we look at UNICEF's data on that, as well as the UN's generally data on that. So as we look at especially African American students in the US, where are they on that educational level to be able to become secured individuals? And the greater goal, of course, is for them to be effective global citizens. And we want all of our students now and our young people coming up wherever they live to become global citizens. Dr. King talked about the World House, and he was a bit before his time because people couldn't gather that, that concept. But now we see it immediately. With nanosecond technology, we are in every place globally, within a matter of seconds. So we have to be able to say that we are a society that is ensuring that we are educating our children, providing them the access to be effective global citizens. And that's the challenge. And so the work at K through, training teachers in K through 12, working at universities, educating university students to have a sense of social responsibility, whatever the discipline, whether we're talking about STEM courses, whether we're talking about humanities courses, there should be instilled in them this sense of social responsibility. Yes, you're here, you're getting educated to get a job, but then what does that mean? So even if you're working at Netflix, do you have a social responsibility to ensure that what is produced, what is messaged out, moves the social consciousness towards being an advocate and protectors of human rights? So those are the ones that I've been working on most recently.
Wonderful. And I think you already answered a few questions here in the chat that talked about exactly if civil rights apply for everyone around the world, and you answered that. And also, what's the next move? And this is it, becoming more self-conscious about your role in society. Don't wait. I always like to say this. Don't wait for governments, for the United Nations, for somebody else to do something when you can do your own part. You can do something in the community that you belong to, in the place of work, in the places close to home, as Eleanor Roosevelt liked to say, where that's where education needs to begin. So I'm gonna jump right into one of the questions here from someone is, what strategies would you use to motivate those minority groups and disadvantaged groups to utilize the few avenues available for education and access?
Well, first of all, to make sure that parents work with parents and communities to make sure and instill in them the value of education. And so that will transfer to their students. And then in terms of at the schools, we need to make sure that our teachers are dedicated, that they're dedicated to the education of students, and many of them are, most of them are, I would say. The greatest influences on me outside of my parents have been my teachers. So to work, and for parents to work closely with the teachers, and because I'm going to say it takes a village, right? But
That's
it
right.
also takes the teamwork between parents and teachers working with the child to know that there's a consistency there for in instilling that value of education and the value of excellence, and of course meeting children where they are. So that's part of it. With universities, we just had a session yesterday. Universities have a responsibility to make sure that they're developing access roads, pathways for students to enter the university, whether we're talking about community colleges or getting into the four-year and graduate schools, but access roads into those institutions so that they can get additional education. Because we know that, 50 years ago, even 25, well, I would say 50 years ago, having a high school degree would have been sufficient. But today it isn't. So whether we're talking about additional technological training, which may not require four-year degrees, but it does require additional training. The other thing is looking at our K through 12 system, and there are opportunities in many of our high schools that allow for dual studies at the same time. So a junior or senior high school student can already begin collegiate work within the high school and graduate not only with a high school diploma, but also an associate degree, or graduate with a technical certification. So those are the types of things, and in terms of access. But more importantly, there are so many opportunities out there that we have to ensure that we are taking advantage. We are encouraging our young people and even our adults who may want to be switching or transferring into a different profession, take advantage of those opportunities. Dr. King said one of the greatest tragedies is for doors of opportunity to open and for people not to be prepared to walk into them. So wherever there are opportunities, encourage people, take advantage of those opportunities. The opportunities aren't just going to come to you. So, and sometimes many of our groups think, well, they're going to have an attitude towards me, or I'm not going to fit in, or I may be the only one. That's okay. And so you have an individual responsibility, right, to take advantage and look for those access opportunities. And then we also have the professional responsibility to ensure that those access opportunities are available, are developed first, and that they are available.
I'm so glad you put that, Dr. Banks, out there, right? Because sometimes my students don't like, oh, she's the teacher. Do it because just the teacher. I always say it's like, it's you, the individual. So thank you so much. And I'm looking at the comment chats here, which is amazing. Like, people love the fact that you made a time to like be here and share from your wisdom. They are calling you the civil rights royalty, which I agree with, right? You are doing such an amazing work. Domestically and internationally. So if we were to like address, there are so many questions, and unfortunately for the sake of time, we are already past the time for this webinar. We should have a conversation, just you and I, like a full day conversation on this, and put it out there. They are asking if you have any particular initiatives or trying to help countries such as Rwanda or DR Congo or any other African nations that are currently struggling right now, Ethiopia as well, right? Struggling with the human rights challenges.
Yes, unfortunately, there are several, and we've heard them in the news. And we help them through organizations such as the World Federation of United Nations Associations, working directly with the ambassadors, but also working with community civil society organizations, so and NGOs. So organizations such as the Links Incorporated. We just did a mission trip to Jamaica to help with the building and the supporting of schools, primary through lower level schools there. In terms of the DRC, we've been in contact with women's organizations there to assist, because in many of the conflict areas, of course, women are the most victimized. And we saw this also during the Civil War in Liberia, where sexual assault was used as a weapon of war. And we just saw it in the news the other day that now it's appearing in other countries also. So linking women's organizations together, the organizations here in the US who work together for women's rights, as well as linking them with women's organizations in these other countries for protection, for assistance, and certainly for the fight for equal rights among for women. I'm trying to think with Haiti, that's been an ongoing assistance issue and programs. We've worked with many of the religious organizations here who had that do have many missions there. So religious organizations institutionally have over the years, over a century, sponsored missions which provide education and health services. So we've worked with them, as well as we've worked with, as I said, civil society organizations, women's organizations on the ground there through our linkages. And so, yes, there are some things you may not be able to do individually, but this is where working with organizations that have that as their goal, or have that as some of their programs, and learning what are those other organizations that are working in the same area where I'm working, that maybe our organizations can collaborate. So, goal 17 is partnerships, right, of the SDGs. So how do we partner to have more power and more assistance that can be rendered to these areas?
That's right. And, I just asked my team to scout through some of the comments, and we were all able to see them here on the stage. We see that we are all in agreement. The question is, where do we go from here, right? We are doing this education on multiple levels, exactly as you presented, Dr. Banks, from kindergarten to school, and not only through formal education, but also education can have multiple ways and forms, right? I remember myself when Romania, the country where I'm originally from, got into the EU, the European Union. They had to conduct an entire mission and public service announcements throughout the country that are teaching people that now they are no longer just a Romanian citizen, but they are European citizen and have rights. Their rights expanded as a European citizen. So they had to put all these nice videos in bus stations, in cinemas, on the TV. So I was raised by my dear grandparents, who unfortunately right now they are no longer with us, but they lived 40 years in communism. And even them, after seeing and watching these videos on repeat, they consciously started saying that I'm a European citizen and I have rights. They did not let, So I love how you put it out there that every individual that is here, that is watching us, the power lies within you. We need you to help us bring this message forward, bring education. So if you're participating in today's webinar, I encourage you to go home or share with others what you've learned. Hey, I've been to this cool webinar today, and I've learned all this. So Dr. Banks, I know you are coming from a family closely connected to iconic civil rights leaders. We are so honored if you can share how this legacy, obviously we've seen this in your work right now, but how do you particularly feel that their legacy influenced and shaped your work in advancing human rights?
Well, of course, it was the foundation of my life, basically. I was raised with that in the household. Dr. King, Reverend Abernathy, Mrs. Parks, Dr. King's other ministers who would travel with them throughout the nation. They would come and stay at our house, and that would be the dinner table discussion. Of course, at that time, kids didn't sit at the table. We had a kids' table, or we were busy helping, or I was busy helping my grandmother who was preparing the dinners and things like that. In fact, someone called me from Ohio about a month ago and said, "Are you Tita Victoria Banks?" I said, "Yes." They said, "I've been looking for you." And the lady said, "My grandmother told me that she knew your family in Detroit and that she used to work with your grandmother and cook dinners for Dr. King. Is that true?" I said, "Absolutely." She says, "Well, everyone thought that, something was wrong with her, that she was." I said, "No, that's exactly what it was." Because, of course, at the time, as they traveled throughout the nation, they could not stay at hotels. So, they slept in cars as they journeyed, or they would have houses that were houses of church members. and that's the way they were housed. Same thing happened with, and just very quickly, with university students. There were some cities where, when even those students were accepted to those universities, they could not live in the dormitory because of racism. So the churches in those communities, the Black churches in those communities, would volunteer to have the students live with them. I mean, so this has been an ongoing, and these are parts that don't get talked about, a lot in terms of that. But yes, as we go forward, and of course, one of Dr. King's books was Where Do We Go From Here? Okay, because you have to plan it out. You have to organize. You have to be able to communicate. You have to do information gathering. And part of training in human rights is information gathering. You have to know what is out there, what applies to it. Many of the things that we have faced, African Americans, there's also other groups have faced in the U.S. We never saw them as human rights issues. For instance, Flint, Michigan, and the water issue. When no one else was helping Flint deal with the corrosion in the water that had been going on for decades, that is a human rights issue. And they wanted to limit it. Oh, it's only to this little town with this population of Black folk, and it's a Black issue. No, that is a human rights issue. And we find it in the Universal Declaration. We find it even in other documents. So that issue was raised. People organized, and I talked with some of the people. And I said, it needs to be raised at the UN, and it was. Same thing with the George Floyd. Yes, throughout African American history here, police brutality had been nothing new. We thought it was only something we just had to deal with ourselves. And then you say, wait a second, this is a human rights issue. There are organizations, there are governmental, international organizations that deal with this. So let's raise this to that level. And that's exactly what happened.
That's right, and I'm looking at the inspiration that you're making here a movement, right? In our chat here, and I wish I had more time to talk about this wonderful issues from you. Again, I launched the invitation to also submit like a proposal for our human rights training. I think your wisdom and knowledge is so important, and I always love our students to get into hear from people who are doing the work, not people who are reading books and just. I've been through so many years of study myself, going into like law schools and masters of laws, and I always hated like hearing just from professors that never done anything right, like in the field. So I think like having learned from you, from USIDHR, from Drexel, from Andrea, from Jeanette, from everyone today that joined us in this wonderful Unity in Diversity. It was a really Unity in Diversity webinar. So I really want to thank you, Dr. Banks, for your time today. I really appreciate you sharing this knowledge with us, and looking forward for a continuous collaboration in partnership for SDG 17, right?
Great, and thank you. And again, congratulations on the programming, and we're looking forward to more programs such as these.
Definitely, and you'll be very, very pleased and happy to learn that this year, the Let Her Lead program, which we are empowering women and encouraging them to not become victims of domestic violence, is going to Liberia. So we just awarded 20 scholarships for 20 girls to complete the human trafficking prevention training.
Good. Well, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much, Dr. Banks. So we are here at the end, ladies and gentlemen. As we draw this enlightening webinar to a close, I'm filled with immense gratitude and inspiration. Today, we had the privilege of hearing from remarkable individuals, our esteemed speakers who have shared their journeys, insights, and invaluable contributions to the cause of human and civil rights. To each one of you, Drexel's mothers, to each one of you, Drexel's mothers, Mrs. Andrea Dobines Wagner, Cesar Dema Musa, Jeanette Mata, Dr. Rakim Rogers, Honorable Dr. Teda Banks, I extend my deepest thanks. Your stories are not just narratives of personal achievement. They are powerful beacons of hope and catalysts for change. I would also like to express my heartfelt appreciation to all of you watching us from home, engaging with our session. Your presence, interest, and engagement are what makes events like this not only possible, but profoundly impactful. You are the reason why I and us and everyone here at USIDHR continue to strive towards a world where human rights are upheld held and cherished. Now, I want to issue a call to action for you. If you are not yet part of the USIDHR family, let's say you found this video online, either right now live or later on, I encourage you to consider becoming a certified human rights consultant. As you've heard from our speakers today, the certification isn't just a title, it's a tool for transformation. It's an opportunity to be part of something bigger than ourselves, to make a tangible difference in the world. Think about the impact you could have, the lives you could touch, and the changes you could help bring about with such a certification. I must extend my deepest thanks to my team for their tireless efforts in making this webinar a reality. A special acknowledgement goes also to my production manager, Abel Minaya. Abel, your dedication and skill have been instrumental in bringing this event live to homes across the globe. I thank Laura, I thank President Juancha Manuel, and also Ramba for introducing me. We could not have done this without you. Before we part ways, I want to remind everyone that at USIDHR, we offer a variety of training and courses tailored to meet a broad spectrum of needs, from human rights to human trafficking prevention, international protocol, business consulting, and more. So even if you are part already of the USIDHR family, I invite you to equip yourself with the knowledge and skills to really make a difference. And here's some good news. I want you to view all these courses and enroll today at a special discount for this amazing Black History Month. I want you to just use the code Black History, and I'm going to ask my team to post the link here down below. Once again, thank you all for joining us today. Let's continue to work together, learn together, and make a lasting impact of the world. Together, we can create a future where human dignity and rights are not just ideals, but realities for all. Thank you. And my end message is stay inspired. Thank you so much, everyone, today.